Hello, everyone. Welcome to another BDPA Tech and Career Talk. I am your Tech and Career Talk leader, Devin Jenkins. I serve as a commercial IT success manager at GE Healthcare, and also the founder CEO of Share the Vibes LLC, where we connect people through music and technology. I'm so glad to be with you all today. I currently reside in Charlotte, North Carolina. So glad to be in the South enjoying the warm weather as summertime approaches and people getting ready for vacation. So I hope everyone's staying safe as you move around this summer and enjoying some time with your family, friends, and all that you have going on. Just to give some context before we jump into today's conversation, I'd like to make sure everyone is grounded on who BDPA is and what the tech and career talks are all about. So BDPA is Black Data Processing Associates. The organization was started in 1975 as a forum for making sure we continue to have a strong African American presence in the IT industry. We do development with the youth, especially at the middle and high school level, around teaching them computer skills, professional development, and preparing them for skill sets to be relevant in this technological world. Then also at the professional level, we provide a forum for professional development, networking, and engagement to continue to advance everyone's careers from the classroom to the boardroom. So we're glad to have you with us. Our Tech and Career Talks take place on the second and fourth Friday of each month. A few exceptions here and there, but for the most part, we're here. They last 1 hour, and we have a range of speakers speaking on different topics. Some are more hard skill focused, like AI and brain machine interaction. Some are more on the soft skills side, like emotional intelligence and career navigation, and everything in between. So we have something for everyone, regardless of whether you're at in your career, whether you're a student, or whether you're retired. You can get some value out of every conversation that we have. So, last thing before we get started with today's conversation, I would be remiss if I do not encourage you to go out to conference.bdpa.org. Make sure you register for this year's BDPA Con in Atlanta, Georgia. We're going down. We're at the Westin Peachtree Plaza again, July 31st through August 3rd. We will be in Atlanta for BDPA Con 24. So make sure you go to conference.bdpa.org, register. It's going to be a phenomenal time. If you've been to BDPA Con before, we have a great time. We learn, we network, but it's always worth your time and worth your money and worth your energy. So come out, and we look forward to seeing you in Atlanta. All right, that's my sales pitch for the day, and we're gonna let the real salesman take us from here. But we're excited to have our VP of Strategy with us today, Mr. Keith Scott, who is an executive in his own right in sales and solving missions. And I'll let him tell his story for you. But Keith, glad to have you with us today. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me today, Devin. Devin, it's an honor to be on TED Talk today.
Well, glad to have you with us. So, just to kind of break the ice, I always like to ask our guests somewhat of an off the wall question to get things going, other than no, tell us your story. So, to kind of kick things off today, given our theme around corporate sales, a PhD in relationships, and we'll have to give the people the backstory on that pretty soon. But you'll say you have $10 billion. You have a $10 billion buyer. He's coming to you, hey Keith, I want to buy BDPA. I got $10 billion. How do you sell BDPA to that nigga?
Well, I would tell them that BDPA is a premier organization focused on nurturing STEM pipelines for digital transformation professionals, entrepreneurs, educators, future information technology leaders. We've been doing STEM since 1975, and before it was a buzzword. So for nearly 50 years, we've enabled the upward mobility of African Americans, minorities, and underserved communities to develop exciting careers in computer science, data science, and technology engineering, to include math. So you're getting the best of the best, right? 50 years plus of doing what we do, and training over, I think, about 20,000 students now that have actually participated in a high school computer competition, that are doing amazing things in corporate America, in every vertical that you can think of.
Hey, and that's why you're with us today. Tell us how to do this thing. So, man, great sales pitch for BDPA. We might need to get on the website. So I think more people need to hear that story. But thank you for that. So let's get into it today. I'll go back to my kind of general question to start things off, but let the people know what's the backstory on Keith Scott. Who are you?
So I'm a Maryland native that an Air Force veteran. I did telecommunications in the Air Force, every facet from patch panel switchboard to satellite communications. The Air Force gave me an opportunity to work with industry to help them transition from mainframe to client server. What that really means is back in the day, we had mainframe computers, and today we have the internet, right? So I actually led a team of individuals out in LA where we brought in Cisco and Oracle and Microsoft and ATM and Sonnet and technologies that are now called the internet, right? And literally actually saw companies become $100 million companies because they were helping us solve mission effectively. And retired out of the Pentagon a few years back, and then did consulting for 5 years, building network operation centers with a small boutique system integrator who was doing some amazing things. They developed protocols like Telnet, FTP, SQL for the internet, right? So a small company, but they were very instrumental in solving some tough mission problems in DoD, and I learned a lot. So for 5 years, they had me in many different capacities, helping customers solve problems. For example, I upgraded State Department from Wang Mail to Windows, right? So now I'm telling my age a little bit, but so every facet of technology, it's all syntax to me. Um, and you can teach yourself anything. So as a kid growing up in Baltimore, I went to an engineering academic high school, and I was coding, in the 10th grade, right? It was called COBOL and Fortran back then.
Mhm.
Today, y'all have Python, HTML, and others. But I quickly learned when I joined the Air Force that you can do pretty much anything and don't put limits on yourself. And the Air Force gave me an opportunity to learn international business, right? Because I was able to travel the world and work on many different systems. And when you got reassigned to a duty station, just learn what you need to know and made it work to support mission. And I've always had that focus in my mind from a business perspective. A lot of people say, "Oh, you joined the Air Force, you wanted to serve," but I really joined the Air Force because I wanted to learn international business, right? And it gave me the opportunity to do that. So when I transitioned out and I started consulting, my focus was helping solve mission problems and building network operation centers around different government agencies. I became kind of they called me a subject matter expert in S&MP, but I was really just doing what I did. Um, and then I did that for like 5 years. My company was sold to a larger company, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not really a big company guy. So I put my resume out. I was at the Pentagon at the time, helping build the Network Operations Center for the Global Command and Control System at the Pentagon that supported the Joint Staff. And I put my resume on the street, and all these companies were like after me, Cisco and Concord Communications, quite a few of them, Computer Associates and others. And I'm like, why are these companies interested? I'm not a sales guy. But to them, I was because I had relationships with the customer. They considered me a trusted advisor, and that's what they needed. They needed people that could not only understand the technology, speak to it in layman terms, but also ensure the customer experience was what they needed. And so I stepped out on faith in 1999 and started with a company called Concord Communications, who I helped bring into a DoD effort at the Pentagon to give visibility into Cisco routers. When people are resetting routers to fix network problems, we developed some capability, partnered with a company called Concord Communications to help them do baselining on capacity of those routers, so people no longer had to reset a router to fix something. And I wound up being Concord's first pre-sales engineer. I really liked the flavor of the company. They had a Silicon Valley vibe back in '99. They actually flew me up to Boston. I get to Logan Airport, and it's a guy who put my name on a board, Keith Scott, and I'm like, yeah, that's me. And he grabs my suitcase and takes me out to a stretch limousine. I'm like, wow, you must be picking up quite a few people. And he's like, no, this is for you. So that gave me some bells and whistles. Like, wow, this company think that I'm worthy of this, right? Because I hadn't been exposed to that kind of environment. And then drove up to Marlboro, Mass, and met all the execs. And it was like everybody was in khakis and polos. Then DC, everybody's in suit and ties. I'm like, I think I can come work for a company like this. Right? They had that Silicon Valley vibe back then, and this was in '99. So I spent the day meeting all their executives and wind up signing some agreement, and they made me their first federal pre-sales engineer.
Mm.
So I actually did that for probably about 5 months. And then I realized this company was growing really, really fast. And I wanted to do something different than what I already had done in government. So I actually recruited a buddy of mine to do the federal work, and I wound up doing commercial. So I got in 2000, I got the opportunity to do all the .com companies that were VCs were just throwing money at them, right? So I worked with the telcos, the managed service providers. I covered everything from DC to Canada, and all the telcos back then. It was Sprint, AT&T, Bell Atlantic before they became Verizon. So I gained a lot of experience really fast, but I was traveling all over the place that first year. And then that was my first year in sales. In the second year, I'm like, okay, let me tell them what I'm going to run now. So I said, hey, I'll cover DC to North Carolina. And the reason why I wanted North Carolina is because Charlotte, North Carolina is the largest, second largest banking center in the country.
Yep.
And banks spend a lot of money, right?
Yep.
And I was in sales, so I like those commissions and bonuses. So I wind up covering, they called it the Mid-Atlantic. And
Yeah.
that was, very, very lucrative. Probably about 2 years into being the sales engineer, my sales guy, the customer didn't really want to talk to him because they just wanted to know when when they were going to write a check, right? And this particular individual didn't have the customer care experience in networking and building relationships. So I wind up they started requesting me, and my director asked me, did I want to be the account executive? And I'm like, sure. So for like 2 years, I was the engineer and the accounting. I just cut out the middleman and
Yeah.
took all the money. But it was a very, very lucrative thing to experience. Not even thinking I was a sales guy, but wind up being the trusted advisor who could also communicate with folks and help them solve their toughest problems. And that's one of my marquees in the business, right? I don't try to sell. I'm not a used car sales guy. I'm a guy to go out and try to build the relationships, get an executive sponsor, and figure out what keeps you up at night, and
Yeah.
try to solve those problems, right? And they look at me as a trusted advisor versus somebody that's trying to sell them stuff.
Yeah.
And it helped companies to innovate, right? Because
Right.
they were getting feedback from me on what the customer really wanted to solve their problems, and they were building to that versus building they will come, like some companies do. So it was a great experience. So 5 years at Concord, we got acquired by Computer Associates in 2005. And then I was, again, I'm not a big company guy. I was headed off to a small company, and one of the VPs pulled me up and said, hey, we really need your help in the federal space, because I was still cleared in DoD, so I could navigate in the Pentagon or wherever. And they made me an offer that was pretty attractive, and I wound up being at CA, helping them build their DoD business for 5 years. And then I woke up and I'm like, okay, enough of this already, and got recruited to a company called FireEye, which was a cybersecurity company. Helped them. I moved into an account executive role working with DoD for them, and we IPO. I helped them IPO in 2013. So 3 years after I joined them, we became our IPO, and that was really nice.
I'm sure it was.
Spent 4 years with them, and then I took off for like 6 months thinking I was retiring. And then my wife and I, we traveled and did some stuff and came back home, and my phone messages were like, Keith, where you at? I need to talk to you. Right? So I started answering these calls, and ended up with a company called App Dynamics. They did application performance management software, and I took a director of global alliances role, channels, building their channel, working with all large federal system integrators like the Lockheeds, the Boeings, the Accentures, KPMGs, et cetera, bringing our products into their portfolios,
Mm.
into their center of excellences, et cetera. And then we were going to IPO in January of 2017, and 24 hours before we actually rung the bell, we got a call the day before thinking, okay, we're going to ring the bell the next day, and Cisco acquired us. So,
Ah,
but Cisco was nice. They still let us ring the bell, right? Because they really valued what they were acquiring. And they acquired us for twice what we went IPO at. So we weren't
wow.
complaining.
Yeah.
Um, and I left App Dynamics shortly after that acquisition and started consulting, doing business advisory consulting, which I'm still doing now. So I'm on the board of a couple of companies. One of the companies is an AI company called Level 42 AI, which is an early stage startup that's doing digital data analytics using machine learning and AI to detect early stage diseases.
Yeah.
Created a new science called Vibram. Um, so the body is like a symphony, and everybody part vibrates at a different frequency, and we figured
Yeah.
out how to detect 7 respiratory diseases, partnered with Uniform Services University, which is a DoD organization. Um, and we completed a bunch of clinical trials with DoD, John Hopkins, India, Africa, many universities around the world to detect COVID, RSV, tuberculosis, influenza, all 7 respiratory
Mm,
lung, heart, brain, and gut diseases, non-invasively with this sensor technology that we developed when we adapt our science and AI algorithms. We can scan the body non-invasively and in 30 seconds determine if you have those diseases. So that's something that'll be rolling out here shortly. We're going to have a big go to market at CES out in Vegas in
yeah.
January. So you'll hear more about that.
Oh wow. Yeah, you're busy, man. Man, you
I'm having fun, Devin. I'm having fun, right?
I'm glad you are, man. That's quite the story. We've spoken before a few times, but I'm intrigued. Like it's my first time hearing it. It was my first time hearing some of this. I'll say it makes sense that you're the VP of strategy for BDPA. Just hearing your life story, the journey you just walked us through. The theme of today's talk is sales and relationships, and the role it plays in having a thriving corporate sales career. But you couldn't help yourself but keep coming back to technology and all of that. You talked about being in the Air Force, being engineers and routers, and even now you're doing AI and like health informatics and data analytics. Like you can't escape
Yeah, I mean, people keep inviting me to the party, right? I'm just, average old kid from East Baltimore, and
it.
I happen to go to an engineering academic school, learn a little coding, and I don't put any limits on myself, right? And
Yeah,
I love innovation, so I'm always future scanning the marketplace to see what's next, right? To solve the toughest problems, and that's kind of what motivates me to get up every day and do what I do.
yeah. So let's I was gonna go a different route right here, but I think I'm gonna start somewhere differently. So when we were having a discussion last week, in preparation for the call, and you trying to get out of doing it because you didn't feel qualified. um, but in that conversation, you said, man, I don't have a PhD and all these degrees and stuff. I got a PhD in relationships. I say, man, I like that. I like that a lot. But in hearing what you just said, it sounds like part of what made you so attracted to all these companies, you even try to retire, and it's like, nope, we're not letting you do that, is because you're a person who, when you get in these roles, you have an uncanny ability to talk to people and activate different sales channels for these companies because you have a however many decade long Rolodex of relationships, which is key to making those things happen. So tell us, in your own words, what does it mean to have a PhD in relationships, and how has that set the stage for you to, have the career you've had in sales?
It's funny you should ask me that question because every company that I've worked for over the past, because I've been in sales exec over the last 30 years. I normally walk into a conference or a room, or I'll invite the CEO from Silicon Valley or wherever they're based to the Pentagon and meet with, some executive sponsor. And when I say executive, I mean some senior executive level person or some flag officer or some CEO that have signature authority, right? Because in sales, you got to have an executive sponsor to get anything done, right?
Yeah.
So I believe in you're always networking in business, and no man is an island in business, right? You can do nothing by yourself in business. If you think you can, those are the companies that fail within the first year, right?
Hmm.
So a lot of people will call me specifically because of my Rolodex. Let's be real, right?
Yeah.
And my access, right? Because I do have access to things. And then I participate in different organizations that extend my access based on my goal for what I'm trying to achieve.
Right.
For example, BDPA, right? When I joined FireEye in 2010, a friend of mine who was over at the National Security Agency, I interned in high school with John Hopkins, and I'm really big in pushing people up, right? And both my kids interned when they were seniors in high school. So I met this guy. A friend of mine introduced me to this guy named Perry Carter, who's now the national president for
Mm-hmm.
BDPA. So you got to meet this guy. And growing up in Maryland or the DMV, a lot of high schools, when I was in high school, interned with government agencies and companies. When they were like seniors in high school, right? So I thought that was normal, right? And then when I was in the Air Force, I was in England, and in 1981, they sent me to Fort Meade. I was at the National Security Agency, and I learned what internships really was about. They were getting all these kids out of high school when they were seniors. They would apply as a junior. They would get their security clearances that summer, and then they would start working as GS employees, paid interns, right? And I'm like, wow. And they were recruiting from all the high schools, and I was just amazed. And these kids were actually put on a track that wanted to, after they graduated, they were offered full-time GS jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they were on a certain track, they could go from like a GS1 to a GS9 in like 4 years, which was pretty good back then. And you didn't even have to have a college degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
And internships also pay for school, because all government agencies, as well as a lot of companies, have scholarship programs for people. And I think internships are important, especially for kids. And I don't think that we're doing a great job as a country. I think we should be interning kids in middle school, because I think high school is too late. They've already formed or been influenced by what they don't want to do because they're not exposed to the possibilities, right? The what
Yeah.
ifs. And I think we need to just expose our kids, and even down in elementary school, because in other countries, they're teaching kids cyber in like first and second grade, right?
Mm.
So, and they put in music and the arts in elementary school, which they took out in the inner cities. And here, and after the riots in '68, and it hurt us bad, because math is music is advanced math, right?
Yeah.
It teaches you the disciplines to learn science, and all the abstract thinking skill is
Yeah.
lost in our underserved communities because of that. The best people that I've hired over the years for programmers were out of work musicians. Why? Because they had abstract thinking skills, unlimited
Mm.
imagination. They were writing applications that was just blowing me away, right? I'm like, dude, we were expecting you to do that over 90 days, and this guy come in 2 weeks and say, hey, I'm done, But yeah, so networking. I know I kind of went off track a little bit. Everywhere you go, you should be networking, and you should try to find a mentor to extend your networking in whatever capacity you're working in, whether you're a W-2 employee or a 1099 or you own your own company. You should be constantly building your network and meeting people, and not asking for things, but participating and seeing what you can offer them, right? Because I joined different organizations for exposure to what I'm trying to accomplish, right? Right now, I'm getting ready to get involved in some AI healthcare for level 42 organizations, just to be visible and hear the executive sponsors talk about where they're going to be spending their money. Because in sales, you got to follow the money, right?
Yeah.
Decision makers tell you where they're going to spend their money, just like the National Defense Authorization Act tells you where DoD is going to spend their billions of dollars. So
Yeah.
um, I keep business real simple. I think business is simple, people complicate it.
Yep.
And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
There it is. There it is. Got to build a Rolodex everywhere you go. Keep things simple.
At every level of
Um,
your career, you're constantly networking. Yep.
absolutely, absolutely. So to maybe kind of level set the group, kind of going back to the theme for today, corporate sales, PhD in relationship. Um, how do you define corporate sales? What does that even mean?
Interesting. So I think companies today, uh, winning today is about beating the competition at the it isn't about beating the competition at the old game, whatever your product or service is. It's about inventing a new game, defining a new market or category, developing it and dominating it. over time. You can build a legacy company without building a legacy category. If you think you have the best product, it's all it takes to win. You're going to lose. So you can have the worst product in the world, but if you know how to position it and educate it as a gotta have versus a nice to have, we
Mm-hmm.
could be $100 million company. I've seen it all the time. And so when I think about corporate sales, first you got to have something that's differentiate you from everybody else that's out there saying they can do whatever, right? And find your niche. And then once you do the analysis on the marketplace that is something that people are willing to spend money on, then you think about what the sales infrastructure should look like to get that product to market. And most people think that sales is build and they will come. And again, you got to do the analysis and share with people that have decision-making power to say, yeah, that's something I could use. Hey, can you help me develop that, right? Because when you can solve something, if you can take a idea and turn it into a vision of from a nice to have to a gotta have, that's when you have a product or a service to sell, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Did I confuse you on that?
No, no, I think it's how do you position yourself as something people need or at least perceive as a need,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we
And again, on market analysis, right? When you think you have an idea, you should go into the marketplace. For example, I'll probably bring a level 42 device to the BDPA conference. I'm not going to try to sell anything. I'm just going to have a little tabletop and demonstrate that we can detect, create unique biosignatures for audible and inaudible sounds that no technology on the marketplace can detect. Today, doctors are using a stethoscope. All right, they can hear 10% of what's going on in your body and they're guessing. The technology that I'm going to bring down to the BDPA con, we're giving doctors 90% more visibility into what's really going on in your body, right? So our Vibram science will do a deep analysis on the gases, the airflow, and organs. So your body notifies you that you're sick long before you feel like you're ill. But there are audible and inaudible sounds that cannot be heard. And we've developed that technology to give doctors and clinicians superhuman hearing into the human body based on the vibroacoustic technology, electrical pulses, our AI machine, generative AI that's gonna, when we scan you, we create a digital twin
yeah.
and constantly learn, and our AI gets smarter and smarter the more people we scan. For example, we scanned over 15,700 folks for our clinical trials to get FDA approved, which
Mm.
hopefully will be shortly for COVID and RSV and those 7
Yeah.
respiratory diseases, right? Um, and we did that with Johns Hopkins, UC Davis, Uniform Services University, over in Bethesda, 59th Medical Wing, which is pushing us out to all DOD. So you find a niche on a problem that you can solve, and then you got to market it and educate the consumer that, hey, this is something. As a matter of fact, we just completed a exercise down in Camp Lejeune with this technology, showing the Defense Threat Reduction Agency that we could detect chemical biological effects when a warfighter was exposed to chemical, biological, or nuclear, right? And we went down and we proved this technology, and it was very, very effective. So you can't just talk the talk, you got to walk the walk and hand it to some folks and say, hey, just kick the tires and tell me what you think and get their feedback and then build on what they want to write a check for, right? So again, it's a strategy. I call actually there's a methodology called Play Bigger, and I advise everybody to read this 226-page book. Play Bigger was written by a few guys that sold a company called Mercury Interactive back in the dot-com era for I think about $4 billion, which was unheard of back then.
Mm.
But it teaches you a methodology on how to create your category and dominate it. How rebels and innovators create new categories and dominate markets. And the last 3 companies I with use this methodology, and it works and it pays dividends. So that's a nugget. Play Bigger. Go download it from Amazon, and it'll give you a whole way of thinking about business and
Mm.
products and services and go-to-market strategies. And then once you figure out that you got something, then you can put up that the components for the sales transaction and all that, right? And nowadays with social media, sales is totally different now, right? Because a lot of folks are selling their solutions as a service, if it's software, and we are in a software-defined world.
Yeah.
So products and services and pricing and the payment methods, terms and conditions, it's all changed. And like I really got out of the sales in 2018. This is 2024, and it's amazing how much AI
Yeah.
and generative AI is changing the game,
Hmm.
literally overnight, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to change it even faster um, because we don't have the restrictions on AI that we probably should have had at the beginning. Similar to the internet, when the internet was built, it wasn't built based on security, right?
Hmm.
So our adversaries like, oh, okay, we don't have any security, we can go play, and they've been playing hard. When you
Yeah.
look at this election, all the social media goulash is coming from countries outside the U.S. that people don't even realize. It's a
Yeah.
bunch of fake news, but they don't know what they don't know, right? So the world is changing very rapidly, and the
Yeah.
sales strategies, go-to-market strategies have changed, and the folks that are agile and adopt are the ones that are going to win, regardless of how great their technology or bad their technology is.
Yeah. So I think you spoke to a lot of things. So in defining corporate sales, at the core of sales, you have to have a problem to solve and a solution for that problem. That's kind of what it boils down to. If I had to summarize what you just said, figure out a problem that needs to be solved, have a solution for it, and differentiate your solution from the others that may be in the market. So I think that's one thing there. And you kind of got into kind of the different things that make up a sales transaction briefly. You got to have a price. You got to have your markets. You have to have customers. You need to educate your customers. You need to market to your customers once they know what you got going on, and all those things. When I think about sales from my own perspective, I think a core component, a core tactic, if you will, is storytelling. I think sales is an extended exercise in storytelling. You have to be able to convey a message to your customers that connects with them, that they can relate to. Because we don't really buy things, we buy stories, we buy messages. You have to, it resonates with me. So, you just gave a whole story. You were selling to us in real time. I don't know if we got any medical purchasers out there, but I peeped what you did there. But you definitely told us a story around, hey, doctors use stethoscopes every day. You've been to the doctor before. They only hear 10% of what's going on in your body when they do that, though. We got something that gives you far more than that, far sooner. So you told a story that's compelling that we all can relate to, and people may not even caught on to that. So, in terms of storytelling, what advice do you have for people to be effective at storytelling and crafting powerful stories to be more successful when it comes to converting sales?
Be able to explain it to a 5-year-old and they understand it. So whatever your story message is, it has to be simple enough for a 7-year-old to understand, right? So I've worked with a lot of technologists, really, really smart people, PhDs, all kind of degrees. And some of them, when they talk to people, they're so, I mean, 10 minutes into the conversation, people just glaze over, right? So um, the chief marketing piece of sales is so critical from a technology perspective or any business perspective when you're trying to sell a product or a service. And to get that messaging right, to tell that story, Devin, you're dead on. The story is the magic, right? Long before you even have a product, you got to put a story together that resonates with folks to say, wow, I didn't think about that, but that's something I would spend money on. Guess what? You got a potential prospect that can not only purchase the product, but help you build the product, especially when you think about Amazon and Google and Microsoft and Tesla. Guess who paid for all their R&D? Department of Defense Research and Development dollars. So our tax dollars are paying for all their R&D, just like Level 42, we're partnered with Uniform Services University, which is the biotechnology arm for research and development for DoD. They pay for all of our clinical trials, et cetera. So there's some magic to this madness on companies that are $1 billion and some $1 trillion now, and their R&D is paid for and without tax dollars. And I'm hoping that our BDPA students at Code are hearing that, right? Because all of our kids can be entrepreneurs. Whether you're a W-2 employee or a 1099 or you own your own company, you are an entrepreneur, right? You're providing a service. And you can define the scale of the revenue you want to generate based on the service that you're providing to that entity. That makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think
We're all
that's
entrepreneurs, right? And
yeah.
think about it. In BDPA, we have kids that are coding, graduating with associate's degrees. And over here down the street where I live in Maryland, they're paying kids 6 figures that can code, right? U.S. Cyber Command, National Security Command, right? And you got to be a U.S. citizen to go into these jobs. And they're hurting for the talent because our educational system is not a pipeline, a funnel for those. So they're calling people like BDPA to say, hey, you got any kids that are graduating? You got any kids in school? Got any kids in college? We need them. Can they apply to these jobs, right? So, yeah, it's the world is changing rapidly. And I tell kids this all the time. I don't care what you major in, you should minor in information technology because every career field is going to have some technology application. And if you can, whatever your expertise is, if you can take technology and make it better, a lot of companies will pay you $20,000, $30,000 more in your base salary because you can leverage technology for their business.
Absolutely. Well, hey, we're gonna take a quick shift. We have a couple of questions in the chat. So I'm gonna let you address those. But the first one is how much SQL have you used in your career? The second is how did the company arrive at its name? So I'll let you address those questions.
I'm assuming they're talking about level 42.
And Jesse, I'll let you come off and you can clarify that question too. So Will Meter and Jesse, I'll let you all speak to your questions in the chat.
Because I do have a consulting firm, but I'm just represent level 42 as for this particular
Well, I was speaking about level 42. How did you all arrive at that? Does it have
yes,
any kind of meaning, that kind of thing?
yes, level 42 do. If you Google level 42, and I'm doing it as we speak,
And taking on trucking companies is no easy task. So at the
there's a group called Level 42. So the founder of Level 42 was from Zimbabwe, and he grew up in London. And there was a band, Level 42, that he actually wanted to work with. But so 42 was the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. The number 42 was the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. That's what level 42 means. So if you go Google that, it'll give you that definition. So level 42, everything in the universe vibrates. We created a new science called Vibram, right? So we can create biosignatures for humans, animals, and infrastructure, right? And when I say infrastructure, think about smart cars, right? There are not smart roads today.
Right.
And everything in the world vibrates. So hopefully one day, level 42 sensors will be out there making those, they call smart cars, really smart. Because right now they're trying to use cameras and they can't really do it with cameras. So this Vibram science is going to be a game changer in not only health and wellness, but giving more audible visibility into a lot of different things. And we're working with folks in many different fields from, we just did a test with our sensors in the F-35 fighter pilot seat back, right? And we put it in the wind tunnels and it was so efficient because pilots don't say that they're not healthy enough to fly. Their mission is to fly sorties. But it's been discovered that pilots are having girls only fighter pilots, right? And pilots are dehydrated. So we're picking up data that's helping them answer questions that have been gone unanswered for many years. And what we've really done with our viable acoustics technology and science is we collapsed Western medicine and Eastern medicine into a science. Because for over 4,000 years, folks have been using viable acoustics. You see the healers rubbing hands and healing people. based on vibroacoustics, right? So Western medicine and Eastern medicine collapse help us develop this technology, the science. It's been mandated by GECO, the Global Medical Board, and now we're developing different form factors to help get visibility into early detection of early stage diseases. Imagine detecting cancers in phase 1, right? Because today healthcare is reactive, and we're developing technology to make it proactive, right? So you can eventually, over time, go to your local pharmacy, buy our technology at a very affordable cost, and scan your own body and say, wow, I have cancer in my lung in phase 1. Let me go do something about this. Let me share this with my doctor to see if they can, help. Now, over time, it's going to help people live longer. But health is wellness, right?
Thank you.
So when you've been getting information for whatever you all do, how much have you used SQL? I'm a SQL programmer and I love it. How much have you used SQL to gather information for decisions that you all had to make?
Well, we are a big data analytics, AI machine learning company. So we're using we developed our own generative AI. I'm not the developer, right? I'm the go-to-market board advisor of Level 42, but we can talk about all of the technical technology under the curve. But we're a generative AI machine learning company, and we're collecting the data and we're developing the form factors. So SQL is very key to massaging data and providing this business intelligence, right? But yeah, data science is a much needed effort that we are discovering that there's a shortage around the globe. So SQL is paramount, right? Because you got to massage data and turn it into business intelligence. Most of your big companies like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they're big data analytics companies. They're capturing all of our data and they're developing new products and services to sell to us, right? So the internet companies are really big data analytics companies. BDPA, big data.
Big data. Thank you. Thank you.
But SQL is not going away. If you're a SQL developer or coder, you should be employed indefinitely.
Are there any other questions from the group at this time? Okay, if nothing right now, Keith, I wanted to ask you how did the game change, or how did the rules change when you're talking about business to business versus business to consumer, versus other types of sales?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So business to business is a different methodology than selling to consumers, right? Because there's different things that must be considered. For example, you have a whole chain of folks that you have to go through on the business. You got to get an executive sponsor. You got to find that unique problem. A lot of businesses don't buy direct, so they only have some channel distribution way to get your products and services into them. So you got to learn and build those relationships with the folks that are packaging to sell to them, right? That has the T's and C's to bring your products into their portfolio of offerings. You're constantly learning. You got to have effective communication to develop strong communication skills, both verbal and written, to get people to pay attention to you. Relationship building, focus on building trust and rapport with customers or those channel partners that are the gateway to your customers. And every vertical have their own channels and distribution. Resilience and persistence, right? Sales can be challenging with rejection being a common part of the process. So you gotta develop resilience and perseverance to bounce back from setbacks and keep pushing forward. Good time management, right? You got to set clear, achievable goals for yourself and manage your time effectively to prioritize tasks that drive results, right? Because people can waste a lot of your time. So you got to discern quickly, oh, this is not real. Let me move on. Adaptability. be adaptable and flexible in your approach, right? The sales landscape is constantly evolving. So be willing to adjust your strategies based on changing market conditions and customer needs, right? Like I mentioned, I'm always trying to find that toughest problem that a customer has. When I show up and join an organization or participate in a conference, I'm there to hear the customer talk about what keeps them up at night and where they're going to be spending their budgets. So you got to be adaptable to that. Emotional intelligence, understanding your own emotions and those of your customers. Develop empathy and emotional intelligence to connect with your customers on a deeper level, right? And effectively address their concerns. Most people that I do business with, and I use LinkedIn as a strong business tool. I have connections from when LinkedIn first became available. I connected, and I keep connected with people around the world. So if I do have a question or I need some asset around the globe, I have someone in my network that I'm 1 or 2 calls away that can connect me. So, and other people are constantly say, hey, I'm connected to such and such, and I connect with them because it extends my network to do global business, because business is really global today, right? So your relationships should continue to grow and scale based on what your business objective and goals are and what domain you're focused on in business. Networking, we talked about, build a strong professional network within your industry. I mean, BDPA has opened the door for me to get access to every flag officer at the Pentagon, right? And an extension of BDPA partnered with BEA, Black Engineer of the Year. All African-American flag officers come out in February. They were down here in Baltimore at the Baltimore Convention Center. And I got to network with those folks. BDPA, we normally have 2 tables at the BEA conference. So you're constantly, and every year, a flag officer or SES can go from a 1-star to a 3-star, right? Depending on what position they're in. And those are decision makers, right? Those are the folks that control the billion-dollar budget. So I make sure that, I attend certain events and let people know, hey, here I am. And I love you come out and speak to our BDPA organization, right? Give them lifetime achievement awards because they're not recognized in our community. I mean, this is the Academy Awards for us for BEA, right? Recognize the folks that do what we do. And then having a positive attitude, maintain a positive attitude and outlook, even in the face of challenges, right? Again, no man is an island in business. A positive mindset can be contagious and it can help you stay motivated and resilient. Relationships. Consumer is different because you're trying to win over someone from a virtual perspective, right? So it's a different kind of sale because you're developing a product and you want to gee whiz that consumer because he's going to be purchasing that product off the shelf, or have the right social media. I see Instagram and other. I'm always clicking on links and saying, "Is this a real product?" Right? So there's different ways to market to consumers than there are to business. Business, and you need to learn all that as a salesperson.
Sounds like some similar things between B2B and B2C sales. But the challenge are really the differentiators there. But you have to be resilient. You need the relationships. You need to understand how people work. You need a solid story. Just the process differs a little bit between business to business versus business to consumer. So thank you for that. And I think you gave us some good tidbits around just the kind of key elements you need in your toolkit if you want to thrive, and have a successful corporate sales career, or any sales for that matter. So we're almost at time. And I do want to kind of close us out and just make sure that there's no other questions or comments from anyone on the call. But no, what's been the most rewarding experience throughout your journey? Knowing sales, and I think the journey goes from military up until now. But what's been your most rewarding experience when we think about sales, and what's been your most challenging experience?
My most challenging was stepping out from being a consultant into sales, because again, I didn't think I was a sales guy. But people kept saying, "You're a subject matter expert." I'm like, okay, and they were paying me. Okay, but customer success, right? the most rewarding thing that I've had in anything I do is seeing customers experience the success from whatever solutions or services that I'm providing to them. You know, I mean, sales is great opportunity to generate revenue as well, right? I like making money. Not discount that, but I just enjoy pushing up people, right? Sharing with people, exposing people. Most jobs I've ever had, I try to work myself out of the job because I'm pushing somebody else in and giving them something that I didn't have, right? I didn't have a lot of mentors. So one of the reasons I'm involved with BDPA is because I think we need to mentor our young people to ensure that, you know, when we're gone, that they're the next leaders in industry in all different verticals. And, you know, pushing up people is my motto. You heard me say at the beginning, no man is an island. And businesses, whether you're W-2 or business owner, you got a network. You can't do nothing by yourself. And folks should join different organizations that give them exposure into where they're trying to achieve or accomplish success. My daughter's in geospatial, and she's like, Dad, I can't find data scientists, right? I'm like, well, I'm going to talk about that at the BDPA conference because Melvin Greer, who's the chief scientist for Intel Corporation, talks about a shortage of data scientists all the time. Maybe some of them will show up on Saturday for the job fair at the BDPA con in Atlanta, that we can grab resumes and I can get them over to my daughter because she's working in the geospatial, and that's another vertical that BDPA should consider. Geospatial is growing leaps and bounds, and there's a lot of money being spent, and we need to tap into those resources as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then maybe two more things, but what's one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you started this career?
I wish I would have understood sales and early on in my career, because I mean, you know, in our community, we don't have a lot of mentors. A lot of us are the first at what we're doing. And you know, one of the things that I want to leave as a legacy is to be able to touch, and I talk to so many people when I'm working in different organizations, say, hey, have you considered this, right? Just to get them thinking outside of what they're currently doing. Some people call it thinking outside of the box, but I'm always like future scanning wherever I'm at and sharing information, because knowledge is power, right? If I had somebody that could told me, Keith, you know everything there is in communications from teletypes to satellites, and you can do X, Y, and Z, my career path would have been totally different, right? But I just want to give back as much as I can now that I do know what I do know, and you know, see where it can lead the future, because the youth is our future.
Absolutely. Any resources you want to leave the group with before we close today?
If you're serious about a product or service and you want to be a CEO, check out Play Bigger, right? It's a 226-page read, and you know how rebels and innovators create new categories and dominate markets for any product, right, or service. There's a methodology centered around that, and it works very successfully. I just told you two of the companies I work for were the biggest IPOs, FireEye and AppDynamics. Concord, we should have been a bigger acquisition. We should have been acquired for $1 billion from CA versus 385 million, right? But that methodology wasn't there when I was at Concord. And CA got it, right? Because they were a multi-billion-dollar software company. But yeah, there's all kind of ways to win in industry, and feel free to reach out to me and have more in-depth conversations about your interests.
All right. We have maybe time for one more question, if there is one from the group. Want to make sure we don't look over anyone who wants to ask something. Okay. Well, if not, I did put Keith's LinkedIn. I just put the link for that in the chat. So definitely connect with Keith on LinkedIn and continue the conversation if you so choose. Again, I want to remind you to go to conference.bdpa.org and register for BDPA Con. It's going to be a great time. We'll be having some conversations like this there and many others. So go out there. You can see some of the speakers we have lined up for this year. I'll be sending some stuff out pretty soon around from idea to launch entrepreneurial pitch competition. If you have businesses that you're trying to get some funding for, we're going to try to put some things in place to help you do that. And we're going to make sure it's a great experience for you. And then last but not least, this talk will be on our YouTube channel. So National BDPA on YouTube. You can find this and all of our previous tech and career talks out there. You can also go to bdpa.org/tech, the letter N, career talks. And you can see all of our previous talks that way as well. But that's been our talk for today. Thank you again, Keith, for sharing with us corporate sales, a PhD in relationships. I hope everyone enjoyed this and got value out of things you shared. So many nuggets that we can chew on here. So I'm looking forward to what you bring to BDPA Con this year. I know it's going to be phenomenal. As always, thank you all for joining. Thank you for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for checking in. Make sure you click below down there what all the influencers say, like, subscribe, share, turn on the bell to know when we post again so you can tap in all that we have going on. And we will see you next time. But until then, stay safe, stay blessed. Peace.
See you in Atlanta.
All right. Y'all have a good one.
Take care.